What are you doing? They just sneak up on me all the time. So you want to sell firewood? First thing you need to do, forget everything you know about firewood. Clear your mind, forget everything you know about firewood. Forget it right now. Everything you know about firewood, forget it. And now, let's take a look at something that a lot of people, I think, overlook when they're selling firewood. So I've been doing the Woodhounds podcast for almost a year now with Joe from Ohio Woodburner. If you haven't checked out the podcast, the Woodhounds podcast, the #1 firewood podcast in the world, check it out. And if you haven't checked out Joe, Ohio Woodburner, on YouTube, go over there, check out his channel, subscribe, because the man has got knowledge like you wouldn't believe when it comes to selling firewood. But I've been picking up on a few things, just hanging out with Joe, doing the podcast. And there's one thing that I've kind of noticed that I think a lot of people out there who sell firewood, I think they may overlook a couple things. When it comes to firewood and selling firewood, I think what you need to do to start off with is just forget everything you know about firewood. So I'm going to explain that in a second, and I want you watching to forget everything you know right now about firewood, because we're going to do a little quiz. We're going to do a little test here in a little bit, and we're going to see what you guys think and what the results are. I think what happens with anything that you're involved with, the more you do it, the more you pick up on certain ways of doing it, and the more you get in your mind how one way is maybe the best way. So a lot of people who sell firewood, you'll talk to them and they'll say, I've been making firewood my whole life. We've been, burning firewood my whole life. I grew up with firewood. I've been cutting firewood. I've been splitting firewood. I've been selling firewood. But sometimes that's a bad thing. And the reason it's a bad thing is I think it causes you to overlook certain details and overlook certain aspects when it comes to selling firewood. You have to put yourself in the position of a customer who knows nothing about firewood. And I think if you do that, you can end up picking up on little things that maybe you're doing and maybe you're overlooking. I think out there's a growing market of people who are getting into burning firewood who have never burned firewood and who have never dealt with firewood since they were a little kid. And so to them, there are certain things I think they look for that I think a lot of us who have been doing firewood tend to overlook. If you are advertising your firewood, or even if you have, and I'm going to show you here in a little bit, even if you have your firewood out for sale like I do in a roadside stand, I think you really need to pay attention to this. All right, so are you ready for the quiz? We're going to start it right now. This is the first question. So you're looking to buy firewood, and you go online and you see a picture of this. And it says, firewood for sale. All right, so you got that? So now you flip to the next ad and you see this. Firewood for sale. Which of those two ads are you going to click on for more details? You're not sure? Okay, let me give you another example. Firewood for sale. Or firewood for sale. All right, we have just a few more questions left on this quiz. I'm going to show you two more options for, you guessed it, firewood for sale. Option 1, option 2. One more time, that's option 1 or option 2. Are you kind of feeling like you're having an eye exam? Option 1. Option 2. What do you want? So, yes, they just sneak up on me all the time. What are you doing? I wonder what option she would pick. And now for our fourth and final example of which would you buy. Option 1, Option 2. Firewood for sale. Which would you buy? Option 1. Option 2. So how did you do? How did you do on the firewood for sale, would you buy it quiz if you knew nothing about firewood? So even though all that firewood, yes, will still burn, it will still serve its purpose, I think that is the part of the whole selling firewood and all this, there's talk out there about how it's such a high demand and every stick of firewood you have is going to sell and it doesn't matter, just put firewood for sale and you'll be cleaned out. There are people out there who would look at what I just showed you, those options, and they wouldn't care. They wouldn't care which of those they got. They know firewood is firewood, it's gonna burn. But if you're advertising firewood for sale, maybe you should think about the customer's perspective of not knowing anything about firewood. I mean, what if somebody reads, seasoned hardwood mix, 1/3 of a cord. What's a cord? What's seasoned? What's hardwood mix? And then your visuals to go along with the ad. Make sure those are presentable. Now, if you have repeat customers or if you talk to your customers and they don't care which of those pictures you bring and drop off for them, that's great. But that's what you need to find out. And that's where I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think there's a lot of people out there starting to look at firewood as to buy firewood and they don't know anything. But what's the first thing they do? They look at something and they get a general sense of, I don't know, that doesn't look very good, or, hey, yeah, that stuff looks pretty nice. I think if I was buying firewood, that'd be all right. These are some of the things I think, if you've been around firewood your whole life, or if you've always been selling firewood one way, it's just some things to keep in mind. Like, you have to always step back and look at things not as you see them, because to all of us who split firewood how many days out of the week or every weekend or burn firewood for 20 years, like, we know that ugly piece of firewood right there, that's going to burn just fine. But somebody buying firewood for the first time, that ugly piece of firewood is ugly. So just wanted a quick touch on that. I've kind of been looking around at all of the firewood for sale ads around me, and I've been putting my own out there, and it's just something that was on my mind. And I know some of you are going to say, well, why would you tell this to people who potentially are your competition? And I don't really worry about that. I think information is great to share. I think it's good to, have a conversation about stuff like this, because 99% of the people out there, they'll take information in, but they won't execute on it. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Stay safe, have fun, and be cool. Oh, look at that firewood. Whoo!